Let me know if anyone has a hard time hearing me. I'll just shout louder. I have learned some things by being able to be a Unitarian Universalist minister, lo, these many years. I don't want to say how many, it's too many. But I have been able to observe people, not read books about people, but observe people, and come to certain conclusions about life, how life really works, by observing people over decades. And so as a minister, I see certain things, and one of the things I have seen is that there is a huge difference between persons who view life through the lens of gratitude and people who view life through the lens of bitterness about what they don't have or were denied. I have known people who have very little who are sublimely happy. I have known people who are wealthy who night and day only think and dream of how can I get more and secure what I have. So it is a paradox of life that we, to some degree, although many things are imposed on us, we, to some degree, have the power, as the quote from Buddha suggests, of the well-directed mind, of the well-directed heart and mind. We have some control over that. And one of the well-directed directions is, I think, gratitude. I'd like to share 3 or 4 stories with you that bespeak of my journey about understanding gratitude. When my eldest daughter, Allie, was about 2.5, I think, and she had just learned to walk, I would sometimes take her to my office, and I was working in the Pacific Northwest at the time. And if you can imagine, the weather like we're having today, it occurs for about 6 months, day after day there. And so I would get out of the car, I would hold Allie's little hand, and I would walk across the parking lot towards my office. And everywhere we went, there were little puddles, because there were puddles everywhere because of the incessant rain. But wherever there was an indention in the asphalt pavement, there was a little puddle. And to my great surprise, Allie would stop at every puddle and just gaze at it. And I would look over at my office and think, oh God, all those things I need to do are over there. And she is obsessed with the puddles. Why? And then she learned that if she kicked the puddle, she could create ripples. And oh my God, that fascinated her. And again, she was mesmerized by the puddles. And then I said, okay, we'll go another route. So when I would take her, I would go another route, and it would be like going by the edge of the woods here. And there were certain rocks that protruded out of the ground and that were, had like freckles on them, little dark spots. And she was fascinated by that. And she would sometimes try to climb the rocks, and she would see low-hanging limbs, and she would look at the petals of the limbs and just be fascinated with it. And I would think, oh my God, I don't have time for this. I've got to stop taking her to the office. And then after a while, a year or so after this, I began to think, did she know something, or was she aware of something that I had lost? A fascination and a wonderment toward the mundane and I was obsessed with a series of goals that was imposed on me or others. Second story. The point is, did I have something to learn from my daughter? Had I lost something? Second story. I'm at the same place, the same area, and I go to a board meeting that was held at the house of a member of the church, of course, and a board member. And this was located on the Puget Sound in the area north of Seattle. And this house was about 16 blocks from the edge of the water, and it was at the top of a crest. And during the summer months, the area between Seattle, Washington, and Vancouver Island is truly one of the most beautiful places for that 4-week period in the States, I think. So it rains the rest of the time. But anyway, so I was there, and I came into the house, and I looked out this huge picture window. And out there I saw the outline was filled with these tall trees that were so green. Everything was growing wild. There's so much water out there, and the sun had been shining, and everything was blooming. It was beautiful. And then there was the water of the Puget Sound, the dark blue-green water of the Puget Sound. And then there was one of the ferry boats, and they're painted green, and then the top of them is gray or white, and it was a huge boat, and it's sailing, and it's heading over to Whidbey Island. Whidbey Island's the island directly west of where we were, and it was beautiful and magnificent. And up north you could see the islands that head towards Orcas Island, which is kind of the crown jewel of that whole area of islands. But anyway, I looked out at this magnificent view, and I just kind of, I stopped because she had a fantastic view of this scene outside the window. And so after a while, after greeting a couple of people, I went to her and I said, "You have a fantastic view out your window." And she said, "Which window?" I said, "The one that's at the western side of your house." And she said, "Oh, we hardly notice that anymore. We've been here so long, we hardly see it." And I thought to myself, how can you not see this view? How can you take for granted the view that existed outside the window? And I thought to myself, I am to her like Allie was to me in the story before. And it made me think to myself, is there something we humans lose that is precious, which is simply the perception of the wonder of life? Let's fast forward to 2017. That year, I received a diagnosis of prostate cancer. It terrified me. I think it was due to the election of 2016. I'm for real. I was terrified. My eldest sister had died of cancer at age 50, pancreatic cancer. I attempted to learn as much as I could about the illness and how to deal with it. I could not accurately assess the threat, and sometimes I found myself, this was most terrifying to me, I found myself unable to fully trust my doctors because I came to realize that the kind of treatment they recommended was directly related to what kind of facilities of treatment they had at the hospital. That's another story. But my fears filled the void created by my ignorance of being able to assess the situation. I went through a long series of investigation of where to get treated and how to get treated, and I ended up going to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And I underwent a medical procedure called cryotherapy, where they kill the cancer by freezing it. And after that, I was diagnosed as cancer-free. Because I had sporadically in the preceding months thought that I might die, I found myself experiencing like an involuntary mood and feeling that came over me. Immense gratitude that I was alive. Things that bothered me no longer bothered me. And I began to say things like, unless somebody is pointing a gun at my head, I'm not worried about it, because everything else is trivial. I found delight in just being alive, being in the moment, and enjoying as much of everything as I could around me. I had this feeling, involuntarily thrust upon me, that there was an abundance of things to appreciate, if only I could see them. And therein lies the difficulty, the lens by which I saw life. But there was an abundance of wonderful things around me to enjoy and to celebrate. The moment was sufficient. All that I needed was right in front of me. But with the passage of time, this deep appreciation waned. But I had a memory of it. And I discovered that the experience of gratitude can be created by a deliberate choice to notice and appreciate as much as possible. Gratitude, I realized, is something that we have naturally as children. We're born into the world with it, it seems. But as we grow older, many things can diminish and destroy our natural gratitude. The reality is, I came to realize that everything is a gift. Everything, if we see it aright. Life is a miracle, and by miracle I mean a highly improbable or extraordinary event or development that brings very welcome consequences. In this sense, the earth is a miracle. We know of no other species in the whole cosmos that we've been able to explore. We know no planet like the earth in the whole wide realm of space we've been able to explore. Our beating hearts are a miracle. The vast journey of evolution that has led us here has so many improbabilities woven into it to constitute a miracle. The atmosphere that sustains us is a miracle. And I must add that my praise of gratitude does not involve ignoring or minimizing suffering and hardship. Life can be very difficult. The challenges of life can be very, very difficult. And for many people on earth, life is like living in a perpetual hell, a real hell of despair, grief, injustice, poverty, cruelty, and hopelessness, to be sure. But as the old saying goes, I find benefit and merit in trying to light a candle rather than curse the darkness. I found it personally powerful to cultivate, or try to cultivate, a deep appreciation of life. And by that I mean an appreciation of anything and everything all the time. But we need to be aware of how human nature and society and social media and commercial forces and a myriad of other tendencies influence us in ways that push us away from gratitude. During our daughter, Lily, the younger daughter, Lily, Allie's the older daughter, in her first year of college, after her first week, she came to our house. Now, she goes to Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, and we were living in Winston-Salem at the time. And she came home after 3 days. And she entered our house, and she just started weeping uncontrollably, sobbing uncontrollably. And this is a young woman that normally is very composed. And it literally took us about 5 minutes to find out what was bothering her. And what was bothering her is this. She was assigned, as everybody at Wake Forest in their freshman year, she was assigned a roommate without any pre-matching at all. And her roommate was white. Lily is a dark-skinned Asian, was white, looked like and dressed like she had just come off the cover of Vogue magazine. And she and her family were very wealthy, with a home in Manhattan and one on Long Island. And she had just come with her friends from a big party on Long Island all week, all summer long. And this same young woman had come down to the school with a group of women who were from the same private school in Connecticut, had gone to school together for 12 years, and they already had their bonds, and she felt very excluded. This is a normally very composed young woman. Lily is not rich, or we're not rich. And when we were in Atlanta, before that, I had made sure she went to a school that was 65% Asian with people like her, but she went to college and it was a totally different thing. She felt excluded. She felt like she was one of the unimportant ones, and on and on. In this experience, we saw something that talks about the power of the comparing mind. It is in all of us to some degree, and it destroys gratitude. Gratitude is undermined by the comparing mind, wherein we continually are tempted and encouraged to compare our bodies, our possessions, our status, our life situation, and everything else with other people who supposedly have more and better than us. And the comparing mind in its incessant varieties gives us the message that we are insufficient, that we are lacking, that we and our lives are not enough. And this is the opposite of gratitude. We live in a society that to some degree is predicated on the goal of trying to persuade us to be possessed by the comparing mind. The absence of gratitude and the power of the comparing mind and the endless pursuit of more to fill the emptiness has become such a chronic problem and has brought about such immense consequences in the form of climate change and the myriad problems related to that, such as mass extinction, social turmoil, migrating populations searching for a safer place to live, and so on. So it seems gratitude is not merely a frivolous indulgence, but a necessity to help us stay in right relationship and in harmony with the world and reality. We cannot live in a perpetual state of wonderment and gratitude. We have personal, professional, interpersonal pressures and obligations, commitments that demand our attention and responses, and on and on. Gratitude is not an antidote for everything that troubles us, but it has an important role to play in our life if we would let it. I close my remarks in a spirit of gratitude by expressing my gratitude to each of you. I would like to thank you for who you are. I would like to thank you for the sacrifices each of you have made for your families, for your loved ones, for your children, for the generosity you have extended to this community and to those you love. To thank you for all the things that you have done and said for the sake of what is good and true, that no one else will know but you. Thank you for helping in large and small ways, many times in ways that no one else will see or have a chance to acknowledge, to advance at least a little the cause of hope and to build places where compassion can flourish and justice can be honored. May we remember that each of us is a gift to the world, literally, and to one another, and to those who come after us. And now our closing hymn.